Hey, welcome to day 3 of 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in today um, because we have a lot to cover. Um, so, as you can see, I shared my screen to you, and this is just a little diagram that I put together that will be uploaded on the Facebook page. And this is just a reminder of the 7 habits of highly effective teens versus the 7 habits of highly defective teens. Okay, so I'm not going to hit on all the habits right now because we do, like I said, have a lot to cover today. But just to refresh your memory, what we discussed in day 1 and day 2 is the 7 habits of highly effective teens. And those habits are to be proactive, begin with end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, um, seek first to understand, then to be understood, synergize, and sharpen the saw. Okay, so those are the 7 things that we are really going to focus on over the next couple of weeks as we go through this program. All right, now I'm going to stop sharing this to you and we're going to switch gears here. We're going to open up today with paradigms. So, what is a paradigm? Before we can really understand the 7 habits of highly effective people or teens, we need to understand our own paradigms and how to make a paradigm shift. The word paradigm was originally a scientific term and is more commonly used today to mean a model, a theory, perception, assumption, or frame of reference. So, as you see my little diagram right here, paradigm, the way an individual perceives, understands, and interprets the surrounding world, a mental map. A simple way to understand paradigms is to see them as maps. Assume you wanted to arrive at a specific location, let's say in central Chicago, but suppose you were given the wrong map. And through a printing error, the map labeled Chicago was actually Detroit. Can you imagine the frustration and ineffectiveness of trying to reach your destination? We're talking no GPS, okay, a handheld map, labeled wrong, taking you to a completely different area. So the more we are aware of our basic paradigms, maps, or assumptions, and the extent to which we have been influenced by our experiences, the more we can take responsibility for those paradigms, examine them, test them against reality, change them if necessary, and listen to others and be open to their perceptions, thereby getting a larger picture and a far more objective view. It becomes obvious that if we want to make relatively minor changes in our lives, we can focus on our attitudes and behaviors. But if we want to make significant quantum changes, huge changes, we need to work on our basic paradigms, the way we view ourselves and our world around us. Okay, so now let's stop this share. Okay, so let's move on to our next thing, which I'm going to pull up the text here. This is the new chapter that we're going to be starting. Let's see, share screen. Okay. The new chapter that we're going to be starting is Paradigms and Principles. What you see is what you get. The following is a list of statements made many years ago by experts in their fields at the time they were said to sound intelligent. However, with the passing of time, they sound idiotic. All right, so I put together a PowerPoint presentation of these different quotes from people here. So, not really sure why that's outlined green. Okay, well, we're just going to look at the slides like this. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to worry about looking at it in uh, full screen mode, okay? So this is the top 10 all-time stupid quotes. And it should say from fairly famous people, but I didn't think to add that. Okay, number 10. There's no reason for any individual to have a computer in their home. Kenneth Olson, president of Digital Equipment Corp., 1977. Now, I want to discuss these quotes, but actually part of your homework assignment is going to be using these quotes for yourself. So I'm not going to individually discuss each one. We're just going to go through them, okay? Number 9, airplanes are interesting toys, but of no military value. Marshal Ferdinand Foch, French military strategist, 1911. Number 8, man will never reach the moon, regardless of all future scientific advances. Dr. Lee DeForest, inventor of the Audion tube, 1967. When did we reach the moon? Just saying. Number 7, television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. Daryl Zanuck, head of 20th Century Fox, 1946. Number 6, we don't like their sound. Groups of guitars are on the way out. Wow, Decca Records rejecting the Beatles in 1962. Number 5, for the majority of people, the use of tobacco has a beneficial effect. Dr. Ian MacDonald, Los Angeles Surgeon General, 1969. This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Wow. Western Union Internal Memo, 1876. The Earth is the center of the universe. Ptolemy, the great Egyptian astronomer, 2 AD. Nothing of importance happened today. King George of England, July 4th, 1776. If you don't know that date, please look it up. And the number 1 all-time stupid quote from fairly famous people, everything that can be invented has been invented. Charles Duell, U.S. Commissioner of Patents, 1899. You think he's rolling over in his grave right now? Definitely see why these are considered, foolish quotes from back in the day. All right, so let's go back to our text. And let's get busy. Okay, so having read these, let me share with you another list of statements made by real teens, and just like you, you've heard them before, and they are just as ridiculous as the list we just discussed. No one in my family has ever gone to college. I'd be crazy to think I could make it. It's no use. My stepdad and I will never get along. We're just too different. Being smart is a white thing. My teacher's out to get me. No. She's so pretty, I bet she's a diva. Oof, I've heard that before. You can't get ahead in life unless you know the right people. Me? Skinny? Are you kidding? My whole family is full of fat people. What's that have to do with you? It's impossible to get a good job around here because nobody wants to hire a team. So, what's a paradigm? What do these 2 lists of statements have in common? First, they're all perceptions about the way things are. And I think I just realized I'm not sharing my screen, so give me just 1 second. Look at that. I did just realize I'm not sharing my screen. Let me see. I want to make this. There we go. Okay. So if you need to see those 10 quotes that I just read, or those few quotes that I just read, they're on page 23 of your PDF. Okay. Okay. So what's a paradigm? What do these two lists of statements have in common? First, they're all perceptions about the way things are, not facts. Second, these perceptions are all inaccurate or incomplete, even though the people who said them are convinced they're true. Another word for perceptions is paradigms, pronounced the way you see it laid out there, dimes. A paradigm is the way you see something. It's your point of view, frame of reference, or belief. Sometimes our paradigms are way off the mark. And as a result, they create limitations. For instance, you may be convinced that you don't have what it takes to get into college. But remember, Plotmy was just as convinced that the Earth was the center of the universe. And think about the teen who believes she can't get along with her stepdad. If that's her paradigm, is she likely to ever get along with him? Probably not, because that belief will hold her back from really trying. Paradigms are like glasses. When you have incomplete paradigms about yourself or life in general, it's like wearing glasses with the wrong prescription. The lens affects how you see everything else. As a result, what you see is what you get. If you believe you're dumb, that very belief will make you dumb. Or if you believe your little sister is dumb, you'll look for evidence to support your belief. Find it, and she'll remain dumb in your eyes. On the other hand, if you believe you're smart, that belief will cast a rosy hue on everything you do. I mean, I'm going to take a pause from the text right now and just say that definitely as a teacher, you know, in my classroom, I don't know about other classrooms, but in my classroom, I encourage my students, you guys, not to speak negatively to yourself or to other people, because what you think becomes true. Just as we, read, if you think you're dumb, then you'll be dumb. It's all in the words you tell yourself up here. Okay? All right, let's go back to the text. A teen named Christy once shared with me how much she loved the beauty of the mountains. One day, she went to visit her eye doctor, and to her surprise, discovered that her sight was much worse than she had thought. After putting in her new contacts, she was astonished at how well she could see. As she put it, I realized that the mountains and trees and even the signs on the side of the road have more detail than I had ever imagined. It was the strangest thing. I didn't know how bad my eyes were until I experienced how good they could be. That's often the way it is. We don't know how much we're missing because we have messed up our paradigms. We have paradigms about ourselves, about other people, and about life in general. Let's take a look at each. Paradigms of self. Now, I'm going to pause here and just tell you, in your PowerPoint, the PowerPoint that we're going to be going back to at the end of this lesson, because your homework is all about that PowerPoint, okay? You are actually going to take each quote and explain your thought process on each quote, and then there's questions on the very last slide of the PowerPoint that you come from each section of the text that we're reading right now, and I want you to take the text, use text evidence, and apply your answers to those questions, okay? So now, just so you know, there's going to be a question specifically about paradigms of self. I'm stopping here to tell you that that's going to be a thing, okay? Now, let's jump back in. Paradigms of self. Stop right now and consider this question. Are your paradigms of yourself helping or hindering you? When my wife Rebecca was a junior at Madison High School in Idaho, a sign-up sheet for the Miss Madison pageant was passed around in class. Rebecca, along with many other girls, signed up. Linda, who sat next to Rebecca, passed without signing. "Sign up, Linda," insisted Rebecca. "Oh no, I couldn't do that." "Come on, it'll be fun." "No, really, I'm not the type." "Sure you are. I think you'd be great," chimed Rebecca. Rebecca and others continued to encourage Linda until she finally signed. Rebecca didn't think anything of the situation at the time. However, 7 years later, she received a letter from Linda describing the inner struggle she had gone through that day and thanking Rebecca for being the spark that helped her change her life. Linda related how she suffered from a poor self-image in high school and was shocked that Rebecca would consider her a candidate for a talent pageant. She had finally agreed to sign up just to get Rebecca and the others off her back. Linda said she was so uncomfortable about being in the pageant that she contacted the pageant director the following day and demanded her name be removed from the list. But like Rebecca, the director insisted that Linda participate. Reluctantly, she agreed. But that was all it took. Linda noted that although she hadn't won a single title or award, she had overcome an even bigger obstacle: her low perception of herself. The following year, Linda became a student body officer, and as Rebecca relates, developed a vivacious and outgoing personality. Linda experienced what's called a paradigm shift by daring to participate in an event that demanded the best in her. Linda began to see herself in a new light. In her letter, Linda thanked Rebecca from deep within for, in essence, taking off her warped glasses, shattering them against the floor, and insisting she try on a new pair. Just as negative self paradigms are put limitations on us, positive self paradigms can bring out the best in us. As the following story about the son of King Louis, you know what? I don't read Roman numerals, and I apologize. I'm not really sure what that one is. Um, of France illustrates. Okay. King Louis had been taken from his throne and imprisoned. His young son, the prince, was taken by those who dethroned the king. They thought that inasmuch as the king's son was heir to the throne, if they could destroy him morally, he would never realize the great and grand destiny that life had bestowed upon him. Excuse me. They took him to a community far away. There, they exposed the lad to every filthy and vile thing that life could offer. They exposed him to foods the richness of which would quickly make him a slave to appetite. They used vile language around him constantly. They exposed him to lewd and lusting women. They exposed him to dishonor and distrust. He was surrounded 24 hours a day by everything that could drag the soul of a man as low as one could slip. For over 6 months, he had this treatment, but not once did the young lad buckle under pressure. Finally, after intensive temptation, they questioned him. Why had he not submitted himself to these things? Why had he not partaken? These things would provide pleasure, satisfy his lusts, and were desirable. They were all his. The boy said, "I cannot do what you ask, for I was born to be a king." Prince Louis held that paradigm of himself so tightly that nothing could shake him. In like manner, if you walk through life wearing glasses that say, "I can do it," or "I matter," that belief will put a positive spin on everything else. At this point, you may be wondering, if my paradigm of myself is all contorted, what can I do to fix it? I mean, most of the time, especially as a young teenager, we don't even realize our paradigms are contorted. One way is to spend time with someone who already believes in you and builds you up. My mother was such a person to me. When I was growing up, my mom always believed in me, especially when I doubted myself. She was always saying stuff like, Sean, of course you should run for class president. And ask her out. I'm sure she would just die to go out with you. Whenever I needed to be affirmed, I'd talk to my mom, and she'd clean any negativity from my glasses. Ask any successful person, and most will tell you that they had a person who believed in them: a teacher, a friend, a parent, a guardian, a sibling, a grandparent. It only takes one person, and it doesn't really matter who it is. Don't be afraid to lean on this person and to get nourished by them. Go to them for advice. See yourself the way they see you. Oh, what a difference a new pair of glasses can make. As someone once said, if you could envision the type of person God intended you to be, you would rise up and never be the same again. At times, you may not have anyone to lean on, and you may need to go solo. If this is the case with you, pay special attention to the next chapter, which will give you some handy tools to help build your self image. Okay, so really quickly, I just want to share a story. Um, I had a really tough time when I was in the eighth grade, I think. My family moved to Perry when I was starting seventh grade, and I had a good start. Everybody was really nice. I had a lot of friends right out of the gate. And then I suppose with puberty or whatnot, just being in a different place, eighth grade was really hard for me. And my English teacher was especially strict, and I struggled in her class a lot. And I just thought, man, I thought she had it out for me. I thought she didn't like me. She was just, you know, giving me these terrible grades and making me do my work because she wanted me to suffer. That was legitimately how I felt. Now, this is, you know, 13, 14-year-old Brittany coming at you real talk right now. So she calls a parent conference. And I had never been in trouble a day in my life. Like I had been, a pretty decent student. And I did not want to have this parent conference because I had no idea what this lady was going to say to my mom. And anyways, we had it. And I think that probably she saved my life. And I know that that's a really, really strong phrase. But if I hadn't had her step in, because she ended up becoming like my best friend. And now I had best friends that were my age, but like legitimately, she called the parent conference because she saw that I had a self esteem issue and she wanted to nip it in the bud while she could. And that, you know, changed my life incredibly. And I've looked up to her my entire life. And ironically, I ended up becoming a seventh and eighth grade English teacher, um, which, I don't know if she had anything to do with that or not, but that's okay. My motto is be who you needed when you were that age. So there you go. Personal story, paradigm shift. All right. Paradigms of others. We have paradigms not only about ourselves, but also about other people. And they can be way out of whack too. Seeing things from a different point of view can help us understand why other people act the way they do. Becky told me about her paradigm shift. As a junior high school, I had a friend named Kim. She was essentially a nice person, but as the year progressed, it became more and more difficult to get along with her. She was easily offended and often felt left out. She was moody and difficult to be around. It got to the point where my friends and I started calling her less and less. Eventually, we stopped inviting her to things. I was gone for a good part of the summer after that year, and when I returned, I was talking to a good friend of mine, catching up on all the news. She was telling me about all the gossip and different romances, who was dating who, and so on. When suddenly she said, "Oh, did I tell you about Kim? She's been having a hard time lately because her parents are going through a really messy divorce. She's taking it really hard." When I heard this, my whole perspective changed. Rather than being annoyed by Kim's behavior, I felt terrible about my own. I felt I had deserted her in her time of need. Just by knowing that one little bit of information, my whole attitude towards her changed. It was really an eye opening experience. And to think that all it took to change Becky's paradigm was a smidgen of new information. We too often judge people without having all the facts. Monica had a similar experience. I used to live in California, where I had a lot of good friends. I didn't care about anybody new because I already had my friends, and I thought that new people should deal with it in their own way. Then, when I moved, I was the new kid and wished that someone would care about me and make me part of their group of friends. I see things in a very different way now. I know what it feels like to not have any friends. Seeing things from another point of view can make all the difference in our attitude toward others. I'll bet Monica will never treat new kids on the block the same way again. And that little chicken hatching out of its egg. Oh, wow, paradigm shift. Definitely a paradigm shift. The following anecdote from Reader's Digest, contributed by Dan P. Grayling, is a classic example of a paradigm shift. A friend of mine, returning to South Africa from a long stay in Europe, found herself with some time to spare at London's Heathrow Airport. Buying a cup of coffee and a small package of cookies, she staggered laden with luggage to an unoccupied table. She was reading the morning paper when she became aware of someone rustling at her table. From behind her paper, she was flabbergasted to see a neatly dressed young man helping himself to her cookies. She did not want to make a scene, so she leaned across and took a cookie herself. A minute or so passed, more rustling. He was helping himself to another cookie. By the time they were down to the last cookie in the package, she was very angry, but still could not bring herself to say anything. Then the young man broke the cookie in two, pushed half across to her, and ate the other half and left. Sometime later, when the public address system called for her to present her ticket, she was still fuming. Imagine her embarrassment when she opened her handbag and was confronted by her package of cookies. She had been eating his. Consider this lady's feelings toward the neatly dressed young man before the turn of events. What a rude, presumptive young man. Imagine her feelings after. How embarrassing. How kind of him to share his last cookie with me. Oh my gracious. So, what's the point? It's simply this. Often our paradigms are incomplete, inaccurate, or kind of messed up. We shouldn't be so quick to judge, label, or form rigid opinions of others or of ourselves, for that matter. From a limited point of view, it's hard to see the whole picture or have all the facts. In addition, we should open our minds and hearts to new information, ideas, and points of view. Be open-minded. We should be willing to change our paradigms, and when it becomes clear that they're not wrong, it is obvious that if you want to make big changes in your life, change your lens. Everything else will follow. When you really think about it, you'll realize that the most of your problems with relationships, self-image, and attitude are the result of a messed up paradigm or two. For instance, if you have a poor relationship with, say, your dad, it's likely that both of you have a warped paradigm of each other. You may think he's being harsh or putting too much pressure on you. He may see you as a spoiled, ungrateful brat. In reality, both of your paradigms are probably incomplete and are holding you back from real communication with each other. As you'll see, this book will challenge many of your paradigms and hopefully will help you create more accurate and complete ones. So, get ready. Paradigms of life. We don't just have paradigms about ourselves and others. We also have paradigms about the world in general. You can usually tell what your paradigm is by asking yourself a few questions. What is the driving force of my life? What do I spend my time thinking about? Who or what are my obsessions? Whatever's most important to you will become your paradigm, your glasses, or as I like to call it, your life center. Some of the more popular life centers for teens include friends, stuff, boyfriend, girlfriend, school, parents, sports, hobbies, heroes, enemies, self, work. Oh, and let's not forget today, cell phones and social media. Of course, they each have their good points, but they are all incomplete in one way or another. And as I'm about to show you, they'll mess you up if you center your life on them. Luckily, there's one center that you can always count on. We'll save that one for last. Friend centered. There's nothing better than belonging to a great group of friends, and nothing worse than feeling like an outcast. Friends are important but should never become your center. Why? Well, obviously, they're fickle. Now and then, they're fake. Sometimes they talk behind your back or develop new friendships and forget yours. They have mood swings, they move. In addition, if you base your identity on being accepted, being popular, or having the most friends on Facebook, you may find yourself compromising your standards or changing them every weekend to accommodate your friends. Believe it or not, the day will come with when friends will not be the biggest thing in your life. It's true. In high school, I had an amazing group of friends. We did everything together. Swam in irrigation canals, gorged at all you can eat buffets, snowmobiled all through the night, dated one another's girlfriends, you name it. I love these guys. I figured we'd be close forever. Since high school graduation, though, I've been shocked by how seldom we see one another. Now, years later, we live far apart and new relationships, jobs, and family take up our time. As a teen, I never could have fathomed this. Sorry, guys, we can't do everything together. Going to the bathroom. Uh, Make as many friends as you can, but don't build your life on them. It's an unstable foundation. People will change. You will change. Stuff centered. Sometimes we see the world through the lens of possessions or stuff. We live in a material world that teaches us that he who dies with the most toys wins. We feel as if we're supposed to have the fastest car, the nicest clothes, the latest smartphone, the best hairstyle, and the many other things that apparently bring happiness. Possessions also come in the form of titles and accomplishments, such as head cheerleader, star of the play, valedictorian, student body officer, editor in chief, or MVP. There is nothing wrong with achieving success and enjoying our success, but things should never become the center of our lives. In the end, they have no lasting value. Our confidence needs to come from within, not from without. From the quality of our hearts, not the quantity of things that we own. After all, he who dies with the most toys still dies. I knew a girl who had the most beautiful and expensive wardrobe I'd ever seen. She never wore the same outfit twice. After getting to know her better, I started to notice that she had a bad case of elevator eyes. It seemed that whenever she talked with another girl, she'd eye her from head to toe to see if her outfit was as nice as her own, which usually gave her a superiority complex. Her self confidence depended on owning stuff. It didn't come from her own personality, smarts, or kindness. It was a real turnoff to me. I read a saying once that says it better than I can. If who I am is what I have and what I have is lost, then who am I?
And this is actually a great point and something that I bring up in my classroom all the time. I have a group of kids who are constantly picking on other people about the cell phones that they own. So what if you don't have an iPhone 25,000X, whatever's popular right now? If you have a phone, then guess what? You're ahead of the game because there's people out there that don't. And even if they don't have a phone, what if it's their choice to not have a phone? And why should what you think matter anyways? And the same concept with shoes. If they don't have the newest, cleanest Nikes on or the best Converse on, they're giving each other crap about it. Why? Stuff ultimately doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. Your confidence should come from here. Just as the book says, it should be heart centered, not stuff centered. Okay? All right, boyfriend, girlfriend centered. This may be the easiest trap of all to fall into. I mean, who hasn't been focused on a crush or a boyfriend or a girlfriend at one point, right? Let's pretend. Brady centers his life on his girlfriend Tasha. Now watch the instability it creates in Brady. Tasha's actions. Makes a thoughtless comment. Talks to Brady's best friend. Makes a thoughtless comment. Brady's reaction. My day is ruined. Tasha's action. Talks to Brady's best friend. Are they flirting? They're both betraying me. Thank you. Tasha's actions. I think we should date other people. Brady's reaction. Huh, my life is over. No one has ever loved me. The ironic thing here is that the more you center your life on someone, the less attractive you become to that person. How's that? Well, first of all, if you're centered on someone, they're no longer hard to get. Second, it's irritating. When someone builds their entire emotional life around you, since their security comes from you and not from within themselves, they always need to have those sickening, where do we stand talks. Oh, so if who I am is what I have and what I have is lost, then who am I? When I began dating my wife, one of the things that attracted me most was that she didn't center her life on me. I'll never forget the time she turned me down with a smile and no apology for a very important date. I loved it. She was her own person and had her own inner strength. Her moods were independent of mine. Believe me, you'll be a better boyfriend or girlfriend if you're not totally obsessed with your partner. This goes for getting a boyfriend or girlfriend too. If you make your crush the center of your life, it can sometimes come off as a desperate or needy. Independence is far more attractive than dependence. Besides, centering your life on another doesn't show that you love them, only that you're dependent on them. You can usually tell when a couple becomes centered on each other because they are forever breaking up and getting back together. Although their relationship has gone to pot, their emotional lives and identities are so intertwined that they can't let go of each other. Tracy, I think I need a new center. Uh, okay. Have as many girlfriends and boyfriends as you'd like, just don't make them your center. Because although there are exceptions, teenage romantic relationships are usually about as stable as a yo yo. School centered. Among teens, centering one's life on school is more common than you might think. Lisa from Canada regrets being school centered for so long. I've been so ambitious and so school centered that I haven't enjoyed my youth. It has not only been unhealthy for myself, but it's been selfish because all I cared about was me and my achievements. As a seventh grader, I was already working as hard as a college student. I wanted to be a brain surgeon just because it was the hardest thing I could think of. I would get up at 6 every morning all through school and not go to bed before 2 a.m. in order to achieve. I felt teachers and peers expected it of me. They would always be surprised if I didn't get perfect grades. My parents tried to loosen me up, but my own expectations were as great as that of teachers and peers. I realize now that I could have accomplished what I wanted without trying so hard, and I could have had a good time doing it. Our education is vital to our future and should be a top priority. But we must be careful not to let the ACT or SAT scores, GPAs, and AP classes take over our lives. School centered teens often become so obsessed with getting good grades that they forget that the real purpose of school is to learn. You can do extremely well in school and still maintain a healthy balance in life. Thank goodness our worth isn't measured by our GPA. Parent centered. Your parents can be your greatest source of love and guidance, and you should respect and honor them. But living to please them above everything else can become a real nightmare. Don't tell your parents I said that, or they might take your book away. Just kidding. Read what happened to this young girl from Louisiana. I worked so hard all semester, I just knew that my parents would be pleased. 6 A's and 1 B plus, B plus. But all I could see in their eyes was disappointment. All they wanted to know was why the B plus wasn't an A. It was all I could do not to cry. What did they want from me? That was my sophomore year of high school, and I spent the next 2 years trying to make my parents proud of me. I played basketball, and I hoped that they would be proud. They never came to see me play. I made the honor roll every semester, but after a while, straight A's were just expected. I was going to go to college to be a teacher, but there was no money in that, and my parents felt that I would be better off studying something else. So I did. Every decision I made was prefaced with the questions, what would mom and dad want me to do? Would they be proud? Would they love me? But no matter what I did, I was never good enough. It was never good enough. I had based my whole life on the goals and aspirations my parents thought were good, and it didn't make me happy. I felt out of control. I felt worthless, useless, and super unimportant. Eventually, I realized that my parents' approval wasn't coming. And if I didn't get my act together, I would destroy myself. I needed to find a center that was timeless, unchanging, and a center that couldn't shout, disapprove, or criticize. So I started to live my own life by the principles that I thought would bring me happiness, like honesty with myself and my parents, faith in a happier life, hope for the future, and belief in my own goodness. In the beginning, I sort of had to pretend that I was strong, but over a period of time, I became strong. Finally, I struck out on my own and had a falling out with my folks, but it made them see me for who I was, and they loved me. They apologized for all the pressure they put on me and expressed their love. I was 18 years old before I remember my dad saying, I love you. And they were the sweetest words I've ever heard and well worth the wait. I still care about what my parents think, and I am influenced by their opinions, but ultimately, I have become responsible for my own life and my actions, and I will try to please myself before anybody else. Okay, we're going to read other possible centers today, and then I'm going to give you your homework assignment, and then we're going to call it a day. My throat's getting tired from reading so much, and this was a lot more than I realized. So we're going to split paradigms and principles in two. Okay? Okay. Other possible principles. The list of possible centers could go on and on. Being sports or hobby centered is a big one. How many times have we seen a sports centered jock build his identity around being a great athlete only to suffer a career ending injury? Oof. It happens all the time. And the poor kid is left to rebuild his life from scratch. The same goes for any hobbies and interests dance, debate, drama, music, clubs. And what about being hero centered? If you build your life around a rock star, famous athlete, entrepreneur, or powerful politician, what happens if they die, do something really stupid, or end up in jail? Who will look up to them then? Sometimes we can even become enemy centered and build our lives around hating a group or a person or an idea. There are countless websites dedicated to hating particular topics or celebrities. What a waste of time. Why not put that energy towards something that makes you happy? Becoming work centered is a sickness that usually afflicts older people, but can also reach teens. Workaholism is usually driven by a compulsive need to have more stuff like money, cars, status, or recognition, which can never fully satisfy because there's always a new model of iPhone coming out that will put your old one to shame. What did I say earlier? Another common center is being self centered or thinking the world revolves around you and your problems. This often results in being so worried about your own condition that you're oblivious to the walking wounded all around you. As you can see, all these and many more life centers do not provide the stability that you and I need in life. I'm not saying we shouldn't strive to become excellent in something like dance or debate, or strive to develop rich relationships with our friends and our parents. We should, but there's a fine line between having a passion for something and basing your entire existence on it. And that's a line we shouldn't cross. Okay, so we read pages 22 through 33 today. We're going to finish up through principles tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and stop this share of the book, and I'm going to put the PowerPoint back up because this is where your questions come from. Okay, so we went through all of these quotes. Now, here's your homework for today. I want you to go back through all 10 quotes, and in your workbook or your notebook or wherever you're writing stuff down, your notes, I want you to write the quote and write what the quote means to you. So, for example, if we go back to quote 1 here, or quote 10, there's no reason for any individual to have a computer in their home. What does that quote mean to you? Perhaps you guys don't have a computer in your home, but guess what you do have? Most of you have one of these handy dandy little contraptions, and you know what this is considered? A teeny tiny computer, okay? Even though it's called a cell phone. So think about what that means to you and then write it down. What about number 9? Airplanes are interesting toys, but of no military value. Now that was said in 1911. Think about your military today. Is that still true? Quote number 8. Man will never reach the moon regardless of all future scientific advances. Okay, do me a favor. Research what year did we walk on the moon? Actually, hold on one second. Okay, Google. What year did we walk on the moon?
1969.
Oh,
According to Wikipedia, the
Yeah.
United States Apollo 11 was the first crewed mission to land on the moon.
okay. So we know Wikipedia is not a super credible source, but 1969 is correct. Okay, and look, that was just 2 years after Dr. Lee DeForest stated that. So now I want you to go through these quotes, do some research if you need to, like I just picked up Google and asked her, and write what each one of these quotes means to you. Then the very last thing you're going to do is these discussion questions, okay? And you're only going to do the first 2. Yeah, no. No, you're going to do the first 3 questions. So paradigm of self, paradigm of others, paradigm of life. And then you're going to leave principle centered and the both of the principle centered questions for tomorrow. Okay? All right. So I hope that you guys enjoyed today's session, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a super awesome day, kids. Toodle-doo.